Welcome back to the OTTverse channel, where we explore the fascinating world of video streaming. Today, we're going to talk about how a content delivery network or a CDN works. If you have ever wondered how your favorite videos magically appear on your screen without buffering or delays, then this video is definitely for you. So let's get started and learn how a CDN works for video streaming. But first, let's understand how video streaming works over the internet. Videos are generally stored on servers and delivered to your apps when you click play on a video. Traditionally, the video will be directly delivered from that server to your device. Okay, so let's imagine there's this guy in India who wants to play a video, and that video is stored in a server in the US. Okay, so when he presses play, there is a request that goes all the way to the server in the US, and that server responds with the video segment back to the player, the player on his device. So the time taken for this request to go to the server and for the video to be returned is called the round trip time. Now the round trip time, as you can imagine, is going to be quite high, and this can cause a lot of delays and buffering in the video playback. Okay, so this is one problem. Next, let's imagine that there are 1,000 people, let's say 1,000,000 people, all wanting to watch the same movie in India, right? It's a blockbuster movie just released, and all of them wake up and say, hey, let's go watch this movie. So that server is going to get bombarded with 1,000, 1,000,000 requests all at the same time asking for the same movie. The server on its behalf is going to probably respond to the first one, and by the time it finishes responding, it's going to get 1,000 more requests, and eventually that server is going to get overwhelmed and it will crash and burn. Right? So you can imagine that a server is not really meant for tremendous input output video serving. It is primarily meant for processing and storing videos and serving the occasional request. It's not meant for serving millions of requests at the same time. This is where a CDN comes to the rescue. A content delivery network or CDN is a system of distributed servers strategically placed in various locations across the world. The primary goal of a CDN is to improve the delivery of web content, including videos, by reducing latency and increasing reliability. So, a CDN, as we explained, is a series of strategically located servers, right? So, let's assume this is India, and we can say a series of servers are placed in Dubai, which is obviously closer to India than the US. Now, the heart of a CDN is actually your origin server, right, which is the original source of the videos. This server stores the master copy of the video. Now, whenever a user asks for a video, the CDN and the origin server jump into action. Let's see what happens. Let's say the first guy asks for a movie. So the first request goes here, and then the CDN realizes it doesn't have a copy of the movie. So it sends a request back to the origin the very first time, right? And the origin responds back to the CDN with a copy of the movie. Now the CDN stores the movie on its server, on its in its memory, in its cache, and responds with the movie back to the user. Now let's assume that another person asks for the same video content. So that request comes here, and now the magic of a CDN comes into play. Now the copy of the movie is already here, right? So the CDN automatically responds with the movie to this guy. Now the third guy comes in and asks for the movie, and he gets the response immediately. There is no need to go back to the origin. Let's say the fourth guy asks for a movie which is not in the CDN, right? So the CDN gets a request, it's not over there. So then the CDN goes back to the origin server, gets a copy, stores the copy, and then responds back to this guy. So in this way, you can understand that the CDN server closest to the user receives the request. It determines the optimal route to retrieve the video. If the CDN does not have the video in its cache, it goes all the way back to the origin, else it serves its local copy back to the user. For every subsequent request for the same video, instead of going back to the origin server, the CDN serves the video directly from its cache. One of the defining characteristics of a CDN is its widespread network of edge servers. These servers are strategically placed at various geographical locations, and these are often referred to as points of presence or POPs. These edge servers bring the content physically closer to the end user, right? So you see over here practically in this example the content has come closer. Earlier it was in the US, now it sits in Dubai, so it's much closer, physically closer to the user, and this reduces the distance the data has to travel. Now here's an example. I've put an image over here of AWS CloudFront's edge servers which are spread across the world. But you can see there are parts of the world they don't cover. Like some parts of Africa, Russia, these are not well covered. But if you look at the United States, they have several edge servers, several points of presence. The same goes for India. So if you are in these two locations and your service is using AWS, there's a very good chance that your video will be delivered efficiently. Okay, so is this all that a CDN does? Well, not really. A CDN goes beyond caching. They utilize various optimization techniques to further enhance video streaming. For example, they find the most optimal path and the most reliable path to deliver the video content. Another key aspect is load balancing. If as the demand for a particular content increases, for example, let's say a new movie has been released and people are just waking up in India and they've started watching the movie, right? So then people start waking up in Dubai and start watching the same movie. Now the servers might start getting overwhelmed in this part of the in this part of the world. So the CDN's algorithms does a bit of load balancing. It finds the optimal paths and it makes sure that the server closest to the user isn't overwhelmed with requests. It balances the load across a series of servers. Now, what are the advantages of using a CDN? First of all, as we discussed, the latency is reduced, the buffering is reduced, streaming becomes much smoother, and the viewing experience actually becomes seamless. I have created a separate video on the same topic called Reasons Why You Should Use a CDN for Live or VOD Streaming. You can check out the link in the comments and the description. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this quick tutorial on what a CDN is and how it works. I hope this video shed some light on how CDNs work for video streaming. If you found this informative, please give us a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to the OTTverse channel.